Fiona, you were talking a little bit before about some of those challenges that founders take and entrepreneurs take, and you were talking about women having more of a role with traditional taking care of homes and children and stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit more in depth, some of the challenges that you face dealing with women entrepreneurs, some of the challenges you faced as a woman?
Okay, I mean, definitely I'll start with the challenges I face as an entrepreneur. In order to be an entrepreneur, you have to basically be very, very comfortable living between risk and reward. So as an entrepreneur, I was always reaching, I was always seeking out opportunities, I was really creating my own existence. I had a bootstrapped company, so obviously I had to meet my own payroll and overhead and all of that. So just the whole business model of being an entrepreneur is very, very challenging and can be very stressful because you're basically on your own. You're creating your own employment, you're employing other people, you're creating theirs, you're doing interviews, you're doing reference checkings, you're doing everything. So it's really big. And then when you combine being a female on top of that, I certainly think that as women we do have more challenges in to become entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, and a lot of it is the fact that women don't have enough sponsors to basically break into areas that are still primarily male-driven. And that's what Female Founders is going to do, is be able to have a sponsorship network, a mentor network, where we can open up doors for more women. Because that's so essential to get ahead in life, is meeting the right people, being introduced to the right network so that you can profile your product and service. So, you know, for me, my #1 passion is entrepreneurship and teaching people to become successful entrepreneurs if they're already driven and laser focused. But as women, we have to take a bit more care because we have to decide on family issues such as, are we going to have children or not? When are we going to have children? How are we going to juggle the multifaceted levels of our life, from professional to personal? Do we have a partner in our life that's going to be okay picking up at least 50% of the load so that we can continue on our journey to become successful entrepreneurs? You know, in the history of entrepreneurship, men have historically had wives, which is fantastic. So they've been able to go on and build companies because they have someone caring on the home front for, you know, the children, the school, you know, the nanny, etc. But as women, we don't have wives historically.
As an entrepreneur myself, I know it's hard on relationships, and when you're an entrepreneur, it's not like you do your 37.5 hours, punch out the clock and go home like a lot of working people do. Some of us entrepreneurs can end up working 100 hours a week. It's not glamour and riches and red carpets. Do you think that you have to sacrifice certain things as a male or female entrepreneur in life? Do you have to make hard choices to be successful as an entrepreneur?
The #1 thing I say when I'm doing public talks is the whole concept of work-life balance is non-existent for entrepreneurs. Anybody who wants to have a work-life balance is not going to be a successful entrepreneur. In order to be successful, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe your idea in order to get traction and profit. And that's the first thing I notice when I have entrepreneurs approach me that want me to mentor or invest in their business. The first thing I say is, you know, if it's a Saturday night and you've got to go to your child's hockey game, but you have a meeting that you have to be at, what are you going to do? And I know as a parent it's extremely difficult, and that's why I held off on having children until my first company was well underway and I could actually backfill my position. But it is, you cannot build a company with work-life balance. You have to eat, sleep, and breathe it, and especially in the beginning, when you are the creator, the founder, all of the juices are coming from your innovative brain and your ideas, and you're doing everything from, you know, picking up coffee to hiring to reference checking. I mean, you tend to be doing everything as you start to backfill to create a company around your innovation and your idea. But those first few months or years, you really need to be hands-on, and that means working 24/7. So when my staff would leave at 5 at night, I would still be there till 7, and I often brought work home. I worked every weekend. So I was a founder CEO of Trauma Management Group for 13, 14 years, and I probably worked at twice the hour volume to most of my staff, but I should have, because I was the founder.
When did you know that your company really was a success, and what allowed you to sell it? What was the big crux or the big decision to allowing your baby to go?
just to back up a little bit, as an entrepreneur, I always call myself an old-fashioned entrepreneur, which is I believe that every business should be profitable and making money and profitable from day one. There are a lot of businesses that are being built for the future of exit, which is great, but that's not necessarily a business model that I support fully. So if you look at Twitter and all these other models, a lot of them were in traction for years.
Yeah, Twitter had zero revenue for 5 years.
Exactly. That's a very, very specific business model, which is fine. The business model that I work from is when I work with entrepreneurs, I want to get them into beta as fast as possible. And beta is you've got paid customers that actually are buying your product or service. So that's really what I believe in for the businesses that I work with. A business should be making money from day one, and then what we have to do is somehow scale it so that you're making profit. My company was making money from day one. As I scaled, my goals were to maintain a 30% profit on the company as we scaled. So every time we had more contracts or bigger contracts, we'd bring in more people, but the bottom line was always at 30%. Because by the time you wash it through taxes, et cetera, that 30% goes down. So that was always my goal to work with, and that's what I work with the companies and the entrepreneurs that I work with now. That's the goal that I set for them is go get customers, go make revenue, and then we're going to start to work on how we can scale and get you to profitability of at least 30%. I knew that I was successful from the very beginning because of the fact I built a company that nobody else had done. So it was a really innovative company. I created a private sector a private sector trauma counseling company that was a mental health company. But we knew that we couldn't bill families after we'd gone out to do work on homicides and debriefings and bank robberies. We knew we couldn't bill families for our work. It just would have been unethical because they were in trauma. So what we did is we provided 24/7 mobile services, but our revenue model was we would bill through insurance companies, government programs, etc. So we worked very much from an NGO business model, not for government business model, even though we were highly profitable, providing a valuable service. So when that whole machine worked well together, we knew that we were successful and we were onto something, and then we just kept on scaling.
When you started your business, did you come to the point that you just discovered, or did you discover that while you were incubating and growing?
Twofold. I worked in the emergency department for 3 years on their trauma team. I actually have a master's in social work. I only have a half credit in business. Like most entrepreneurs, we're not academic stars. We just have something inside of us that is very driven to create. So I worked in an emergency department for 3 years, and I would be discharging all of these people into the community that needed trauma counseling immediately, and there was nothing there for them. We had victim services units that were overloaded. Many of them were volunteers and not professionals, which is fine, but for in-depth counseling we needed professionals. And then there were waiting lists everywhere. So over a 3-year period of time I thought, wow, there should be something in the community. Then when I left the hospital setting, I started right away, I opened up my own private practice specialized on trauma. It exploded in growth in the first 6 months. And then I realized that if I started to look into funding sources, I could actually get funding for what I was doing. So, my idea incubated through my love of helping people who were affected by trauma, my professional accreditation. But then it incubated even further when I actually got into the real world and I had to actually make a living and I had to be creative. And as an entrepreneur, I felt very strong about not billing people for services. So we took the load as a company, and then we would have to go and find billing sources. And we probably had about a 10% loss rate, but that was the cost of doing business. We had support from Office of Victims of Crime, we had victim services units loved us, police, fire, ambulance, hospitals, funeral homes, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, all of these groups very much appreciated us because we were actually providing a valuable service.
Is part of the success for being a successful entrepreneur being in the right place in the right time? Because it sounds like you were really in the right place at the right time.
Being a successful entrepreneur, I mean, that is my motto, is seizing opportunities by breaking through your own comfort zone. I saw an opportunity and I seized it, and I worked through my own comfort zone of how to learn things I didn't know, how to talk to people to get more help, how to bootstrap a company. So when people say entrepreneurs are lucky, I actually find that offensive because entrepreneurship is not about luck. Yes, there's timing issues that are involved. entrepreneurs that are successful are ultimately opportunists in the best form of the word. We see and we seize opportunities that other people don't. It's like a child picking a penny off the ground. How many adults just walk through it, walk by it, but a child will pick it up? That's what an entrepreneur does. And then they're willing to work with their own psychology to build and grow and manipulate the businesses to make them successful.
And what were your biggest failures along the way? I know that's such an easy question, but I mean, you must have hit some bumps in the road. And what do you counsel the people you work with when it comes to their bumps in the road?
My biggest failures along the road, and you know, it sounds cliche, but we really do, we grow through failures if we take the time to do the analytics and the navel gazing and the growth on it. I'm very honest when I do public presentations about how you really have to want it in order to make it happen. You absolutely have to have fire in your soul to bring your idea into the real world. You have to find something that you're passionate about, because that way, when you go through your 30 highs and 30 lows every day, on the downward cycle, you're willing to pull yourself back up again. So I would say for me, you know, the failures that I had along the road were just naivety, not understanding what it's like to squeeze a new business into an existing market where you think everyone's going to want you and like you, but they don't. There's a lot of politics in business that you have to deal with, from you know, community partnerships, whatever. So you have to really be a master at relationships. And that's something I've had to learn along the way is how to work within systems where everybody wins and really keeping everybody at the table to make a better world. Other mistakes was just, again, not having that mentor network around me that I could have talked to about everything from personal to professional. And that's why I'm creating Female Founders now. I would probably say that the biggest, I wouldn't even say it was a mistake, but the biggest challenge I had was probably not picking my personal partner properly. And as women, you know, we really need to, if we're going to be successful entrepreneurs, we need to very, very carefully select our personal partners. Guys that are going to be, or women, if we're lesbian, we have to pick partners that are going to be okay being in a secondary role, who are going to be okay with us not being there very much, are going to be okay with our driven, laser-focused personalities, and are going to be okay picking up the load, you know. And I think that was probably the biggest mistake that I made, is that I didn't pick my partner well in terms of picking a non-biblical wife, so to speak. If I had had the right partner who had been in that environment for me, then I probably could have scaled the company into, you know, 10 times the size that it was. Okay,
this is starting to sound like an Adele song. We've got
but you know, once babies came along, I made the decision to sell. So to take a break in the middle of my career and go hardcore into investing, so I could focus on family.
So besides public speaking, what are your big challenges and goals now at this stage of your life?
My goal right now is to do lots and lots of presentations on entrepreneurship and hopefully encourage others to become entrepreneurs, to take the leap, and also share with them my 3 lessons learned. The cornerstones of my success are passion, action, and profit. So I love sharing my story so that other entrepreneurs can be inspired, so people can be inspired to go for it. And also people that are entrepreneurs can learn from people like me who have done it, and hopefully take something away from my talks that makes them a better entrepreneur, more profitable, etc. I'm also passionate about investing, so investing is something that I love to do, and as an angel I love to roll up my sleeves and provide some mentoring as well as financial contributions to the companies that I'm with. And I guess the last thing is Female Founders is something I'm very passionate about, because I'm hoping in my short life on this planet that, you know, we can inspire more girls and women to become entrepreneurs, and we can inspire more businesses to look at female founders and co-founders as part of their founding teams, and also to invest in female founders and co-founders, because women still have a very hard time securing angel dollars.
Great, thank you very much.